I'm wondering what additional information you might have about the death of Pat Tillman. I've heard in some news interviews on progressive media that at least intimated that his death might have been other than an accident, that there may have been some deliberate because of his anti-war views. But then in the film that came out, the film documentary that came out about Pat Tillman, there was nothing about that in the film. So I was just wondering, well, is it because there is no real evidence of it, or maybe they were shying away from it? Because at least the storyline that was presented in the film seemed to indicate that it could have well have been an accident. So I'm wondering if you have additional information about it.
I think number 2 was up there.
Yeah, I was just wondering, my voice carries now. I was just wondering, you said with Title IX and women have much more scholarship opportunities than they ever have in the past, why you think that the media coverage of women's sports has gone down increasingly. There you have it.
I think number 3 was over there.
I was just wondering about the nature and the level and the frequency of the backlash that your ideas received.
Oh.
None whatsoever, right?
No, smooth sailing. Happy, fun. Hey, let's roll through it. I know the Valerie Plame movie is due next, which is I think everybody's excited about it. Not really. Okay, the first Pat Tillman. I've interviewed the Tillman family at great length. I've interviewed the director of that film as well, The Tillman Story, which I think everyone should see and support because it's a brilliant film. That being said, it's like their belief is that Pat Tillman died in a case of, as the film makes the case, almost like a machismo run amok type of situation, where the soldiers were so caught up in the moment that Pat was killed and then the cover-up began. I think one of the reasons why they advance that exclusively to trying to look at other reasons is because they think that, because remember, Mary Tillman, the Tillman family, their goal is still to get answers from the Pentagon and from Capitol Hill. And they think it would be a non-starter if they're talking about a more nefarious act that could be at the heart of it. As for me, I'm a big believer, I'm going to mispronounce it, but what's it, Occam's razor? Did I say that right? It's like, people know what that means. It means like the most logical explanation is usually the right explanation. And if you're talking about a firefight on a ridge where one person dies, and it's the most famous soldier in the U.S. Armed Forces, and he's been going around in the Rangers saying in a loud voice about how the war is illegal, and he dies in 3 close-shot bullets at close range, pap, 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 right here, then it leads me to think that something more was up there, and that it would be, I think, profoundly naive to think otherwise. And I understand why they say otherwise, but I think it stinks to high heaven, and the facts are there. I mean, they destroyed right away his uniform. They destroyed his diary that he was keeping. Why would they destroy these things as part of an evidentiary process? Why would they? It just is really disgusting. People knew enough to not tell his brother, who was part of the same battalion, there with him. I mean, it gets to the point where you just say to yourself, if this is a product of the chaos of war, why was the aftermath so unchaotic and so systematic? That's just me talking. We need to finish. I'm sorry. The second question about the backlash of women in athletics. I mean, honestly, it's like I rely a lot on Mary Jo Kane and the Tucker Center, which I recommend everybody look up. It's Institute for Women's Sports at the University of Minnesota. Their explanation of that very phenomena is very connected to the absence of a larger women's movement in this country, and one of the things that produces is the sort of pornification of women's athletics, which their studies, based on objective data, show are very good at selling magazines, very good at selling Danica Patrick, but actually repels audiences for women's sports. And that allows institutions like SportsCenter to sort of fall back on the, hey, this is just the market, and there's no market for this right now. And they actually create the circumstances and the conditions that create that very dynamic, and it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. So big recommendation to the Tucker Center, Mary Jo Kane's work on that. As she likes to say, breasts are not a muscle group. And then the last question about happy backlash fun. Yeah, sure. I mean, it's a part of it, but you know, there's an old expression that the opposite of love is not hate but indifference. So, you know, glad to be noticed, even if it's people telling me to go fuck myself. So, I want to thank MEF for not saying that to me and coming ahead with this project, because it was an absolute blast to do. I'm shocked at the gap between my prosaic words and the incredible film that was put up here. And you guys did an amazing job. I'm so proud to be associated with it. And if anybody here is part of any sort of institution, high school, college, or what have you, please get the film. Please support MEF. I think your students will get a hell of a lot out of it.